Hello, everyone. I am Larry Milliken, and I am the Manager of Scholarly Communications for the Drexel University Libraries. And thank you for joining us for our Wednesday at noon series. Today, I'm going to be talking about finding and using digital primary sources using Drexel databases. And so this is mostly going to be a live resource exploration. I do want to put a little bit of context in here, so I will just talk briefly. So this is about finding primary sources, and it's probably a good idea to give sort of a brief definition of what primary sources are. Typically, these are original or contemporary to an event documentations. What they are in terms of a particular field of study can vary. So if you are looking for primary sources in a medical field, it might be an experiment that is documented in a journal article. In art history, it might be a art object. If you're in studying theater or literature, it could be the written script of a play. It could be the performance. If you're in architectural history, it might be the drawings of the place where the play is performed, or it might be the theater itself. And so there are a variety of different kinds of materials that can be primary sources, and it depends a lot on how you're going to use it. So they can be, official records. They could be government documents. They can be ship's logs. They can be materials. It could be computer logs, maps, other kinds of documents. They can be contemporary records, so they could be photographs of an event or a person, sound recordings, video recordings, physical items like that art object. Or other pieces of physical materials that are used at a given time or place or purpose. Could be news articles. They often say that newspapers are the first draft of history, and that's a feature that we'll be looking at in a little bit. It could be a speech. It could also be personal records. So great primary sources for use in history could be diaries or personal papers, letters, autobiographies. So a person's accounting of what they participated in and what they did. And for teaching, if you're thinking about how you're going to teach with primary sources, they're great for teaching critical reasoning skills. So starting off with a source and interrogating it, asking questions and figuring out what this item teaches, and what it tells us. Close reading skills, really kind of digging into what is there, and to use in building arguments using evidence. So establishing primary sources as a building block for making a scholarly or critical argument. Okay, so there are lots of different archives available, and other places where you can find primary source materials. You can find primary source documents in printed books, in library collections. You can also use the Drexel University archives. They are here and available for our students. Cities have archives. Lots of institutions and companies have archives. I'm a medievalist, and so lots of church or monastic institutions have archives that you can use for materials, but you can't always travel to them, or you can't always travel to them easily, especially as we are in a pandemic situation. Physical access to archives can be difficult. So the Drexel University libraries have access to a number of digital archival sources that you can use that are available to you. I'm going to talk about two of them. There are many more, and this will just hopefully serve to kind of whet your appetite for exploring what is available. So the first one I'll talk about is our Adam Matthew digital collections, digital archives. And then we'll also take a look at one of our ProQuest historical newspapers, which is another great, great tool that we have available for exploring how news were reported in the past. And these will be live demonstrations, as I said. So I'm going to pause my share of the PowerPoint slides and switch over to a web browser. Okay, so this is the Drexel University Library homepage. And I want to show you how you can get to some of these materials. The easiest way to get to either the Adam Matthew collection or the historical newspapers is to go to the databases A to Z link that is right under that search box. I'm going to look where it says subjects. I'm going to pull down and go to history. And you can see some of our various history-related materials. Adam Matthew Digital is right here towards the top, and so I'm going to go ahead and click on that. If you're in the Drexel community and you encounter a screen like this, it's going to ask you to sign in to Drexel Connect. So I will do that very quickly. You use your own credentials for that. And then you get passed on to the resource. So Adam Matthew is a company that puts together primary source material collections on a pretty wide variety of topics. We have access to all of their collections that were published in 2018 and earlier through a deal that we have with the Palsy Library Consortium. And as you can see, you can kind of scroll down, or I'll scroll down, and you can see some of the options that we have. We have things like African American communities. We'll go into that in a second. America in World War II, American consumer culture. You can scroll down their collections on Central Asia, Persia and Afghanistan. We have children's literature and culture, China, America, and the Pacific. So lots of different collections that are available. You can use the topic or the facets that are on the side to kind of limit. You can choose, for instance, cultural studies. You can limit by time period. You can limit by region as well. And the holdings are varied. Some of them are purely textual. Others have multimedia components and can include photographs, can include objects, can include either audio or visual narratives as well. Something that is new is they have a searchable handwritten text feature, which is pretty interesting. And I'm going to take a look at one of these. Let's look at the limit for cultural studies. And actually, it's not coming up. Take that out. Limit to history. And we'll take a look at the Colonial America collection, which is one of the collections that has the handwritten text recognition. These are from the British National Archives, all the contents that are included within. And we are going to go to the collection. Sometimes it takes a little while for it to load. And this is kind of a good example of what it looks like when you use the handwritten text recognition. I'm going to go ahead to demonstrate that. I'll go to Documents. And you can refine your search using a document type. So I'm going to go ahead and go to Treaty. And let's see. And we will view all documents. And sometimes the digital resources can be a little slow depending on internet connections. And did not take my limit. Okay. Let's try that again. Okay, now it's loading. So I'm going to come down and I'm going to click on a collection. So I'll click on American Indians. Okay, now that selection is loaded, so I will click on Treaties and apply the filter. Okay, so this little pencil icon that you see in the result list is what tells you that the handwriting recognition search is working. So if you want to click into one of the items, and this is a boundary agreement between the Cherokee Nation and the US government. And you can search for a word in the text that can be highlighted. So I'm going to search for frontier. And hit go. All right, it'll show you where your item, your search term lies. Go ahead and click on that page. And if I move in a little bit, you'll be able to see in the handwritten text of the document, you can see where your search term shows up. And so in this case, they're showing a line of territory at the frontiers of North Carolina. And so you could explore that further, see where that term shows up in other parts of the document, or move on and search up here for another term that you might want to explore instead. This is obviously a pretty short document. If you're in a longer document, it is really useful to be able to search through that longer document to find just the piece that you're looking for. Okay, so I'm going to come back out, go back to my product page and go to cultural studies. We're going to take another look at another example. And in this case, we're going to take a look at the African American Communities collection. And go to the collection. Okay, so you can search through these collections in a variety of ways. You can go ahead and go to the documents if you want to look at the range of documents that are available. You can also go straight to the image gallery if you know that there's an image that you're looking for. This collection includes oral histories, so you could go straight to the oral history collection. They have both audio and video oral histories available. There are a collection of popular searches that are available that you could use as an example. You can also look at organizations that are already identified and that you can use. And you can also look for individual people or individual places. So I'm going to go ahead and look at the Southern Christian Leadership Conference as an organization. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And you'll see these are documents that are related to that organization or where that organization is mentioned. And as an example, here is a Martin Luther King correspondence page. And so you can go through the document page by page if you want. This is actually from the collection of the Chicago Urban League. If you're looking for something in particular, I like to do the thumbnail view to help you kind of browse through a little bit more closely. You can choose an item that you want to look at a little bit more closely. And so this is the Chicago March headquarters as part of the SCLC. And it is a document, looks like a letter or a memo that is signed by Martin Luther King Jr. And others. Let's see, and so you can see the text of the document, and it's a request to present reports at a meeting. So you can also come up to the search box or into the advanced search screen and do your search there. There are filters available that you can choose. You can choose document type. So I'm going to come down and say I want a video oral history. And this time I'm going to do SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. And we'll go ahead and do a search there. And these are documents, or these are going to be video interviews primarily. And we'll click on an interview with Faye Powell. And I will play this just for a second. See, I don't know if you'll get the sound. Okay. That's just kind of an example of how these videos work. There is a transcript that scrolls through. You can create a clip, so you can limit to a particular part of the video file. And there are embed codes if you want to embed that into a project that you're working on. So it's a really interesting tool. If you kind of, as I scroll down the page a little, you can see where these terms, where the term that I searched shows up in the transcript. And I've tried this in the past. The linking doesn't always work, but you should be able to click on it, have it go to where that term is. And in my case, it doesn't stay where it is. It goes back to the very beginning. I think probably that's a bug that'll be fixed in the future. But it does give you a chance to look at how often that term shows up and gives you a sense of where in the interview you're going to find what you're looking for being discussed. Okay. Something else that is useful to know, any of the Adam Matthew collections, if there is a document, you can download the entire document as a PDF, which could be very useful for going back to. You can search the transcript. If there's a, as in this case, there's a transcript of a video file. You can add it to your archive, which does mean that you would need to create your own personal login to the tool. And this would be, if you go to, if I click on register, you do have to fill in your email and create your own password and your name and institution. User type in most cases will be faculty or some category of student. This is not your Drexel login. This is something that you would be creating yourself. And obviously, when you do that, you should be aware that you are giving a certain amount of personal information about yourself to Adam Matthew for them to create this account. And then, oops, go back to my page. Back to this article. To cite this document, you just click where it says cite or export. It'll give you a sample citation that you can use for your for documenting for your project. It also has links to export to EndNote and Zotero, which are both citation managers that are supported by Drexel University Libraries. And those are tools that you can use to keep track of documents that you're using for a project. Okay, so that is a quick look at the Adam Matthew tool. I want to also do a quick look at a historical newspaper. So I'm going to come back to our database A to Z list for history. And I'm going to scroll down a little bit to request historical newspapers. And I'm going to choose the New York Times. This is a collection of newspaper, the full text of the newspaper, page images, going back to 1851. And it goes all the way up to 3 years ago. So it's a moving wall. Okay. The default search that you see is a basic search. You can go ahead and do an advanced search, which gives you more options to use. So I'm going to do an example search here. I'm going to do the Berlin airlift as my search. And okay, so then we can select one of these items as something to look at. And it gives you, in this case, relatively short text from the newspaper. This is part of one column of the newspaper. If you want to see where that column relates to the page, you can switch to the page view. And the page view shows us the printed page of the New York Times from this date. And you can actually export this as a PDF. You can actually increase your zoom to go back into it. The individual article from the search would be the full text PDF. And if you want to learn the details of the item, it's under abstract details. And that includes a permanent URL to get back to the item. You also see on the side related items. And so these are other documents from other ProQuest resources that are available. If you want to browse the issue, so that will be that day's paper, that you can then scroll through. So this is page 14. We could actually go ahead and go to the first page of the paper, and you can actually see the lead headlines for that day. Okay, I'm going to go. And go back to the results to choose another page as your example. And you can also set the date range, so the results to show. To go oldest result first, we can set our time range to 1940 to 1949 as our start date. You can also weed through some of the many extraneous results that you see, and gives you a chance to kind of narrow your results a little bit. All right, as another example search that we can do, I'm going to, actually I will go and do the advanced search again. So we've searched before for newspaper articles. One of the great things about these historical databases, historical newspaper databases, is you have a lot of different options of what to search for. And you can scroll down in the document type and see, so article is here, but you could also click on a banner, a birth notice, a classified ad, a comic. And we're gonna click on display ad as a good example of what is possible. And I'm gonna do washing machine as the search. All right, so this gives us the display ads. I'm gonna move this up a little bit. Say move it up to 1950. And we can take a look at a display ad. So here is an ad for a sale, an auction sale of washing machines. We can go a little further down. Look at another one. So another ad about saving water by using your washing machine. If we go further, go up a decade. We can look at another one. These are more auction notices, so you can get a sense of what is being sold and where these sales are happening and how they're marketed. Foreign trade, so these would be imports. So lots of different options that you have to explore. Explore what is in a newspaper, kind of the whole range of what is in a newspaper. And another example, books get reviewed in newspapers. And so I'm going to do a search for on Walden Pond. And instead of a display ad, I'm going to do a search for a review. Okay, and we can see we're doing oldest first. So the first mention of Walden Pond or on Walden Pond is from September 22nd, 1854. Go ahead and open this up. And get a page here. We'll take a look at. And we can zoom in a little bit. And we have here, right on this center part, Walden on Life in the Woods. That's the original title on Walden Pond. And it's a review. And what you'll probably see if you took the time to read the whole article, it's not necessarily a very positive review. So as often happens with reviews of works that later go on to become famous, the initial review isn't always quite aware of the impact that the later item will have. And so this is a kind of a good example of that. So mentions that Henry David Thoreau is a man of genius, but then says, unfortunately, however, he's an erratic genius, thoroughly unpracticable, and apt to confuse rather than arrange the order of things, mental and physical. So it's useful, interesting example of what can be found in the initial reviews of something that goes on to be important. And just like in our example from the Adam Matthews, you can cite these items. You can choose, in this case, you can choose the format of the citation that you want to use and export it to the citation manager tools. Okay, so these are my examples of these two different kinds of digital archives that we have. And at this point, I would like to say thank you. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. And I'll go ahead and stop my share.
Thanks, Larry. There are a couple questions in chat from one of our attendees who had to unfortunately leave early, but it might make sense for you to answer them anyways.
Sure.
Great. So the first one is, it looks like at least some of the items in the Adam Matthew database are downloadable. Are there copyright or usage restrictions on any of those items? And if so, how can you tell?
There are some restrictions, and some of the items are downloadable. In this case, and going back to colonial America, because of the date when this item was created, so it's before 1923. It is by by statute, it is in the public domain, and so is freely downloadable. So you can go ahead and, oops, we've already used our download limit for this item, which is probably going to reset tomorrow. That's probably my fault for practicing with it. So you can download the items from this. You have the license to use any of the downloadable items as Drexel students or faculty. That is included in our license. If an item is under copyright, and I will go to this tool where you can actually download the whole PDF of the transcription. That is, well, you won't see it actually because I'm not sharing. So yeah, that is fully downloadable and used in our within Drexel. There are in each case or in each collection notes about what is under copyright and what is not. So it's going to vary depending on the item and the collection, what's in copyright or not. But if you're using it for Drexel purposes, that is licensed from Adam Matthews and you were able to use it. And I think he's also asked if there is any transcription in these collections. And yes, there are transcripts for some of the collections. The primary, some of the older handwritten documents, there aren't transcriptions for. They are fully searchable, but there's no separately downloadable transcript. The newer materials, there are transcripts available.
And then I think there was one more. Can you search across all the Adam Matthew primary source database collections or only within a specific collection?
You can search across all of them, and you'll be taken to results in a variety of collections. As I mentioned, we don't have all of the collections available to us. So if you might hit something that will be in a collection that we don't have access to right now, but the majority of the content will be something that we have access to. And actually, you can also search across the historical newspapers as well, in a variety of ProQuest interfaces. You can do that, or you can do that within the ProQuest historical newspapers collection.